right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. And here he is tonight, all the way across the Atlantic, Jacob Prash.
Stop. Take that back. I don't want them to know what side of the Atlantic I'm on.
Jacob, we say it all the time.
I know, but...
All right, take it again, even though we're live. Here he is, undisclosed location, Jacob Prash. Jacob, are you in the mood tonight?
I'm in the mood. Here we are. Let's progress.
All right. David Lister, we know you're in the South, but I'm not going to say what city, I guess. So how are you?
Well, I don't mind because I live in the most heavily armed county in all of America. So, we're protecting our First Amendment rights over here. So it's good to be here, Marco. See you all again.
God bless you, David. Davey, good morning. It is Saturday morning for you, isn't it?
Yes, Saturday morning. Yeah. And I don't think the weather's going to be too wonderful here today.
That's all right. Welcome in the name of the Lord. God bless you, brother. And Jay, well, I wish I could say that the weather's going to be fantastic here, like Davey said, but it is warmer now. How are you?
Well, last week it was, the weather that we pay for. It was like 78 degrees, but this week all the pre-trip guys are in Woodland Hills, so it's like 104. I don't know.
Oh, very hot. Hey, are you going to go? Are you going to go?
A little birdie is trying to convince me to go, but
it's $70 a pop. I'm not sure.
It's $70 a pop.
And if you stream it, I think it's some other $90 or something like that. I mean, you can get some souvenirs, while you're there. Take some pictures, take a selfie, ask some questions. That'll be a lot of fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, it sounds like joy.
Look, I don't believe in purgatory, but that sounds like that to me. So anyway, that's a different story. So welcome those who are watching and those who are catching us live and those who will watch us later. Episode of Catching Up with Jacob. Jay, what are we, 198?
198, two away from the bicentennial.
Wow. I never thought it would be this far, but that's a wonderful thing. And we praise the Lord for that. And we welcome all those who are watching. Before we get started, we want to make sure that you know that we're on different platforms, including the one you're watching now. But we are on X. We are on Rumble. We are on memorialtv.org. We're on Memorial TV. We're at different websites as well, our own flagship ones. But we do thank Rumble for allowing us to be, and we're going to talk about Rumble tonight because they are censoring them, especially in a South American country just south of us. That used to be a great place to go, democratically, republic, very free. Not so much, but we'll talk about that. We're on X. We're praise the Lord for X at this point. That allows us to do that, but they're also being banned in some of these places, including that South American country that we'll talk about. But we're also on Telegram, which, by the way, they arrested the founder of Telegram. So there goes that idea at this point. It's under attack, and more that's episodes like this and other programs and other ministries are under the scrutiny of what's happening, not just in the United States, not just in the UK, but globally. So we appreciate you watching. Keep watching and keep sharing our videos. We have also podcasts, and those podcasts, you can find them on our YouTube channel. There's an About page, and you can find all where we are. Also, go to memorial.org, and you can find also the podcast platforms, things like Buzzsprouts, things like Spotify, things like Google Podcasts is not in anymore. Is it Google Podcasts or is it Amazon Podcasts that stopped? I think one of the two. I think it's Google Podcasts that stopped. But we're also on iTunes, and those are probably the most popular ones where you can find audio messages from Jacob, Sandy, David Lister, myself, and others that are there. So we praise the Lord for that. Jacob, you got any announcements before we get started? You're going somewhere pretty soon, aren't you?
Yes, this week we are going to the Czech Republic at Brno, and we're at the moment arranging for the live streams to be announced. They'll be announced hopefully within the next day or so. They will be on the Memorial website on the itinerary page. Also, the end of October, beginning of November. The end of October, on the 28th of October, I'm in the Republic of Ireland in Donegal at Ballybuffet. Jackson's Hotel, 7 p.m. in Ballybuffet, Donegal, Republic of Ireland. That'll be the Monday. The previous weekend, the Friday, I'm at a men's meeting in Bangor, and the Saturday and Sunday, as usual, I am at Agape Christian Fellowship with Pastor Marty Foster on Orangefield Crescent in Belfast. The times are posted on the Moriel website, moriel.org, on the itinerary page, or you can just web search Moriel Itinerary. The Thursday, the 26th, I am at Newton Abbey with Pastor Stephen Tremble at Calvary Pentecostal Church. So it's Newton Abbey, Belfast, and Donegal at the end of October. Please come to the Moriel website. The first weekend in November, the 1st to the 3rd, we are having the Scotland Prophecy Conference. The Scotland Prophecy Conference, which will be different from the UK English Prophecy Conference. I'll be joined by Pastor Marco Quintana from California and Pastor Tim Leach from Staffordshire, England. They will be with me at the Scotland Prophecy Conference, the 1st to the 3rd of November at Gartmore House. That is a residential conference. You can find booking details, again, on the Moriel website, moriel.org, on the itinerary page. You can contact Marg, and she will book you a place. It comes fully catered with meals, accommodation, and so forth. The following weekend, the second weekend in November, Marco Quintana and myself will again be joined by Pastor Tim Leach, and that will be at Yarnfield in Staffordshire in the English Midlands. Yarnfield in Staffordshire in the English Midlands. And that will be also a prophecy conference, but a very different one than the one in Scotland. It will be prophecy and velocity, the pace at which things are happening and the increasing velocity at which changes are taking place and prophecy is being fulfilled. It'll be almost a kind of a sequel to a teaching we did a number of years ago called The Vector, and show how things have gained momentum since that time. So we have two different prophecy conferences, two different themes, two different subjects, but the same speakers. One will be in Scotland the first weekend of November. The second one will be in England the second weekend in November. Please join us if you're able to. We keep the booking fees. Again, it's catered, it's meals, it's accommodation. We keep them as low as we possibly can in light of the economy, particularly. If you're able to join us, we'd love to have you with us. Marco, thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. You're not going to Ireland, are you, anytime soon? I know you're going to Northern Ireland, but not Ireland, are you?
Also, the Republic of Ireland on the 28th in Donegal.
Okay. They have it in
County Buffet.
Northern Ireland. Okay, great. I am glad you're going there, because the way things are going in Ireland, man, they need somebody like you to speak there, because we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about that tonight, what's going on in Ireland. And it's been oncoming. It's not just something that came out of the blue, as they say. It is something that's been oncoming and very quickly. So the prophecy and velocity is absolutely right. Very quickly, things have changed over the last 4 years, over the last 10 years, but especially the last few years as well. One announcement I want to make sure that we catch on is I will be with Kevin Thompson in British Columbia, Canada, this coming week, and Kitimat. And if you want more information, there is a flyer that went out on our constant contact, both in Moriel and for our church. And Davey, you got was there a change in that, Davey?
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know there has been a venue change. It is now at the Kitimat Chamber of Commerce, and also the meeting times have changed. There's now 2 meetings on the Saturday and only 1 on the Sunday instead of the other way around. So 7 p.m. The Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, but also at 10 a.m. on the Saturday, the 14th. So please check the flyer for the correct amendment details.
We need to get those dates posted, please, as quickly as possible on the Moriel website, if they're not there already, on the itinerary page for Moriel, Canada.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Davey. And is there any more announcements, Jay? You got one? Is it do we have the new channel, the Moriel Chapel?
Yes. If you have not already, please go to Moriel Chapel. We'll leave a link in the description once this actually airs. And make sure you subscribe. This is where you can find the Bible studies with Sandy, with Marco, and with Jacob. And it's a great new resource in case, we get a strike. You can always find us there. You know, it's a cup game.
I hope it's like a three-card Monty or something like that.
Yeah.
As always, we urge our viewers and friends to please watch us on one of the alternative platforms available. We have our own servers, Moriel.tv, MorielTV.org. We have RTN. There's a variety of platforms. We're not limited to any one.
All right. Well, there's plenty of options. And as long as YouTube lets us be on there, we'll still be on there. As long as Facebook lets us be on there, which is, probably slim or none, depending on who wins this after this election here in the U.S. So we'll figure that one out. But follow us, especially that new channel. It's a great channel to catch a lot of Jacob's teachings that are there, and a lot of the other stuff, prophecy related to catching up, are going to be on this channel. So it's really good. It's a really good 2 channels to follow, subscribe, and share those things. So it's really important. So, all right. So all that said, Jacob, let's catch up. A hashtag that's trending on Twitter: can't afford Kamala. Hashtag can't afford Kamala. It is trending on X and all over the internet. It's an advertising from, I think it's America. It's Right for America, which just shows how Harris thinks that American people are so stupid, especially young people are so stupid, that they would actually vote for her, even though all the economic symptoms are there, that they destroy the economy. And it's an absolute inflationary system that we have, and people can't afford anything. So they are in full panic, I believe, the Dems at this point, because they are back on the Russian asset. Trump is a Russian asset. They went after Russian misinformation. Anybody that has any connection to Trump, even people that weren't even that much of a Trump supporter, have been caught and been banned. This is Russiagate 2.0. They're targeting influencers. 32 domain names have been taken away, as well as YouTube channels have been deleted. So, Jacob, we'll start with that. Can't afford Kamala, and then we'll jump into the Trump being a Russian asset.
I hate to agree with Kamala Harris about anything, but she's right. There are enough young people who are stupid enough to vote for somebody who openly says, we know you're stupid and you're going to vote for us no matter what. There are enough young people who are stupid enough to prove her right when she has outwardly said, you're stupid and we know we can get you to do anything we want because you're a stupid person. And there's enough young people to prove her right. Unfortunately, in this, she is correct. Unfortunately, in this, she is tragically correct. But that is the reality. That is very much the situation that's happening. I have to agree with her on that particular point. But it shows you what she thinks of these people. It just shows you they know they can take them for granted. They've done this with the Jewish vote. They've done this with the minority vote. They've done this, certainly with blacks, Hispanics. They've done it with students. Well, some black people have woken up. That's obvious. Not as many as I like, but a number have woken up. Hispanics have really woken up. And now Jews are waking up because they're forced to. I just hope there are some students who do not prove her right about the degree of stupidity that she characterizes them with. That they'll be able to think and not vote for somebody who tells you, you're stupid. I know you're going to vote for me because you're stupid. And then they vote for her. I just hope that some of them are not that stupid.
Jacob, they ramped up this new thing now. This is Russiagate 2.0. So Trump is a Russian asset. Listen, we're going to talk about Trump in a minute. I watched an interview with Trump about the economy. And I have to tell you, it was one of the best interviews on any economic ideas that I've ever heard anybody talk about. And he did it in front of economists in New York, in front of economists. Yes. He was answering their question. It was brilliant in that sense. I don't think he's brilliant in other things, but at least in this sense, it is true. The wheels are falling off of the Dems. They know that Kamala's honeymoon period is about over. She's losing very much a lot of points, and even on the poly market, on the betting sites, she's actually down 7 points. And the wheels are coming off. She can't answer a question about the economy. She won't do an interview. So now they go to disinformation. Now they're acquiring, well, actually taking away 32 domains. Jacob, is this an act of desperation, you think, of what they're trying to do?
An act of desperation and an act of what amounts to political corruption. First of all, this week, Vladimir Putin has endorsed Harris, not Trump. Now, how desperate can you get? How desperate can you get?
I don't think they wanted that endorsement, but anyway.
Well, Harris has Vladimir Putin's endorsement. So don't tell me about collaborating. They were proved to have been lying the last time, and now they're just going to have to repeat the lie again because that's all they can do. This is absurd. Putin has endorsed Harris. So anybody with even a fraction of a brain left should be able to add 1 and 1.
They should use it as an advertising. They should say, look, this is a candidate that Vladimir Putin endorses.
That's right.
The candidate Vladimir Putin endorses. So the DOJ claims that these podcaster, these are normal channels similar to ours,
Yes.
in some way or another. They were pro-Trump. Some of them are not, but they were basically political pundits who the DOJ says no one's above the law. They have to be investigated, and not only investigated, they were shut down completely and their domain names were taken away. So now you got a horrible situation now where if you think what Harris administration will be like, look what is going on right now where you cannot say anything. And if you're accused of something, you'll have your whole career could be taken away by the government.
A war on the First Amendment, a war on the Second Amendment, and a war on the Fourth Amendment. That is what has been going on. It is a war against the Constitution. The New York Times has as much said so, that the Constitution is a threat to our freedom. The Constitution that has always preserved and protected our freedom is now a threat to it. That is the thinking of the left.
Yeah, the honeymoon period is over for sure. And now, let me ask you about I'm going to go to David Lister. David, Hunter Biden pleads guilty on gun charges and tax evasion. He had a sweetheart deal. He didn't want it. Now, all of a sudden, they scrambled and they said, we'll take it. Another sign of desperation. Perhaps they know what's coming, but I'll leave that up to you. What do you think?
Well, first thing is he came out all hurt and wants to tell everybody that, hey, I'm not going to put my family through all this anymore. So that's what he's saying. But most likely, and I think everybody knows, the fix is in. I said this a long time ago. Biden is going to pardon his son. So let him go through the 2 or 3 weeks doing nothing. Then he comes back for sentencing. And then, people will say, well, it's his son. He's not running anymore. So let him. He's an old man. He doesn't want to have his son in jail. So let him do it. He'll get away with it.
Now, do you think there's an act of desperation that they know that it's not going to be Kamala who's going to pardon him? It's going to have to be Joe, and they have to expedite this because you only have about 100 and some days.
Yeah, he can, if they can get the sentencing pushed behind the election, the day after the election, they'll just pardon him. That's what usually guys do when they're going out the door. They issue all these pardons. Clinton issued.
Yep.
Hundreds of them. Other presidents do the same thing. Last week, they just give pardons to this, and that's the end of it. So, but people will say he's an old man. He doesn't want his son in jail. So, plus my wife was telling me to do it.
Yeah, so he expedites his obviously he was pleading not guilty for a long time. All of a sudden he's got to get the guilty charge now because he knows the writing on the wall. You need to get Joe to do it, not Kamala, because she may not be able to do it. If she doesn't win, he doesn't get it, right? So
That's right.
Her numbers keep going down. Her interview was a disaster. Now Congress is going to say we need to subpoena Tim Walz because of his handling of the corruption with the that happened. Cuomo was going to go on their toe and go back to Jacob. Jacob, you like to see Cuomo and Walz get grilled by the Congress? That would be interesting, wouldn't it be?
The way he tried to spin putting the risk of COVID infection on old people and then blame everybody but the person who was guilty, which is himself. this is a man with no integrity. This is a man with absolutely no integrity whatsoever. That is Cuomo. That's all that needs to be said about him. He was removed as governor, and he should have been, except that he never should have been governor to begin with. This is Cuomo. What more do you need to say about him? There's people dead. There's elderly people dead because of the policies that were invoked in New York State during COVID. They're dead, and they're not coming back until the resurrection. And he'll blame anybody and everybody except his own proven decision and policy.
Yeah.
And try to blame a lower level bureaucrat who's unnamed.
I remember when he got caught doing this, and then the accusations of all these women. And he says, "Well, I just kiss women." He says, "They walk up to me. I'm Italian, so I got to kiss them." That was the most bizarre answer I have ever heard, even for a politician, even for a guy like Anthony.
Well, I got a lot of Italian friends. I have Italian friends in both United States and in Italy, and they conduct themselves like proper gentlemen. They won't put their hands around a woman unless it's a first cousin or something like that. Unless it's a relative or something, they don't behave that way with that kind of familiarity towards women. They just don't do it.
Yeah, Cuomo is something else, man. But also Tim Walz, $250 million laundered to Somali migrants.
Yeah.
You have to give an answer to that. David, what do you think? 250. That's a lot of moolah there.
Yeah, look, the guy's corrupt. He has to answer for this. How after it being discovered and confronted, he continued doing it. So, 250, $250 million. But I expect nothing less from him because he was the one that said, "Let it burn" when Minneapolis was under assault after the George Floyd catastrophe, burning cities. And on top of that, not only did he wait 3 days to get the fires going good, but his Kamala was there working to bail people out. So bail people out so they can get out and burn more. It's crazy. I can't even believe people would vote for these people.
Well, I guess what Jacob's right. Maybe Jacob should make a commercial. There's enough stupid people that would actually keep voting for her. So that's I guess that's we underestimate how far this has gone. And
it is deep spiritual deception, Marco.
Absolutely,
spiritual deception.
And it is evident by the fact that these people cannot even think for themselves. The fact that the reality is you have a lot of people who were just told what to do, and they'll do it. They'll do it. It is.
Don't you love those interviews of Democratic women when they asked, why are you voting for Kamala? Oh, for all of her accomplishments. And he says, can you name 3 of them?
Silence.
Nope, nothing. Can't figure out one. But she passed one bill, and then that was the one that, let's see if I can remember. That was the one bill. Nah, I can't even remember it.
I know she put a lot of minorities behind bars, and she gloated about it, and she laughed about it that she was going after black people, and she wanted to put them behind bars for even for having marijuana, which she says she did it.
Yeah, proud to do it.
Yeah, so it's a mess, man. But I want to go back to Jacob. Jacob, a big brouhaha began to happen this week because Trump was invited by the families, the Gold Star families of the 13 soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan, and they were left at Abbey Gate, and they were left there by the Trump and by the Biden-Harris administration, and they invited Trump to come to Arlington Cemetery. Of course, the Harris administration made a big deal about it and said this is political propaganda. Of course, she's the one doing it. The Gold Star families came out, and we watched a video together of how they just lambasted Harris, as saying, we invited Trump. You haven't even called us. You haven't even addressed us. So, Jacob, over to you. This is a shame and a disgrace.
Not even take the calls. Harris will not even take the calls of these Gold Star families.
This is just unbelievable.
Mr. Trump negotiated the withdrawal from Afghanistan on certain terms. When Afghanistan would not keep the terms, Mr. Trump said we're going to residually keep a small amount of troops in Bagwan and in Afghanistan a couple to prevent the Taliban from coming to power again. Small amount. Minimum casualty risk. Biden withdrew and left 13 dead. Not dead. Now, the blood is on his hands and on the hands of Harris and Austin and Blinken and Jake Sullivan and Susan Rice, as much as the blood of the people in Benghazi are on the hands of Hillary Clinton. But you're
Yes.
supposed to forget this. When the coffins arrive at Dover Air Force Base, not far from Biden's spot on the beach, you're supposed to forget it happened. You're supposed to overlook this. Their lives don't matter. The lives of Gold Star families don't matter. That wicked woman would not even take the calls of those families.
Right.
Mr. Trump was invited to the cemetery by those families, which they have every right to do. He showed up. She did not. And then the media, mainstream media, got caught lying about it, saying that she went to Arlington Cemetery when she didn't. And then they had to retract their lie that she was there. Yet there are people who will still choose to ignore the undeniable facts and believe lies. And they have a right to vote, unfortunately.
David Lister, that was a catastrophic mishandling of what happened in Afghanistan. I mean, you could not, I mean, even you have the Afghanistanians government this year, 3 years later, parading with military weapons from the U.S. saying, we won, and you can't do anything about it. And now you have, obviously 13 soldiers had died. There is no remorse. I mean, you have Biden even looking at his watch saying, like trying to get out of there at when it first happened.
Yeah.
Funeral. So what a horrific thing to say to families like that. And
The only thing, yes.
Go ahead.
The only
Right.
thing,
And then also, you got to remember, they left $85 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan, which is now fueling wars in various places and arms in various places. And,
Taliban, yeah.
and now we see the fruit of this tragic pullout as women in Afghanistan are being treated like horribly, so bad, being beaten. You're seeing 9-year-olds being married off to men, that women are be putting in these burqas and their job, so you can't even see them. They can't go to school. And all that was lost because of this terrible withdrawal. And then on top of it, the political part of it is that she took, they said that he did this as a political ad, and that's wrong to do. But then all of a sudden we see John McCain, Biden, Kamala, all in commercials, political commercials at the same spot in Arlington Cemetery. Talk about hypocrisy. They're the epitome of it.
yes.
So she took a knee for George Floyd, right?
George Floyd.
She took
That's
a knee
right.
for
President Pelosi.
8 minutes. Yeah, with all these the Democrats, they won't even return the call or take the call from the Gold Star families. They don't even go to the cemetery. They rather promote criminal activity. And that's really what they're promoting, criminal activity, letting people out that were burning Minnesota. And she says here, if you're able to chip in for the Freedom Fund and get these protesters out of jail, back on the streets, this is Kamala. The words escape me, and that's something that doesn't happen all the time.
Okay, I agree with you, Marco, but in relation to what David said, $85 billion of military hardware. Biden gave them thousands and thousands of military vehicles. Thousands. He gave them $85 billion in military aid to the Taliban. To the Taliban. All those Americans who were killed, wounded, maimed, fighting the Taliban, were killed, wounded, maimed for nothing. He just gave it to them. There are stupid feminist women who are going to vote for Biden and Harris, vote for Harris, who was part of the Biden policy, while women are being subjugated unspeakably in Afghanistan, and yet they say they're feminists, but they'll still vote for her.
Yeah.
These people are blind, they are stupid, and their hypocrisy knows no level. How could any woman any woman vote for someone like Harris who did that, who's responsible for what is happening in Afghanistan to women?
Yeah. What the
How could any woman be so stupid, unworthy of the name woman, to vote for somebody who's in favor of saying you've got to let a biological male take a shower with your teenage daughter and share a locker room facility with her? How could any woman vote for somebody like that? But these are not women in the sense of what a woman was normally thought to be in saner times. The feminist movement has reduced women to something animalistic and self-destructive.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Jacob, I wanted to ask you this. The New York Times, what's going on in New York? New York Times, it's just really bizarre articles lately. But the first one I want to address is the New York Times says Harris should not be held to the same standard as Trump. Really? They said that?
Yes, their editorial board said because of the extremism of Donald Trump and the extremism of the Republicans, journalists should not hold Harris responsible. The fact that she's not giving interviews, the fact that she's not answering questions, the fact that she's doing what Biden did, hiding in his basement, she's playing the same kind of game because they know she's not intelligent enough to answer the questions in a responsible, effective way. So they're making her scarce, and they're saying, well, she shouldn't be held to the same standards as Trump. There is no journalistic integrity, no equity, no fairness. This is the New York Slimes, not Times. The New York Times no longer exists. All you have is the New York Slimes. The Washington Post no longer exists. The Washington Post is the Washington Compost. That's what it is. New York Slimes and Bezos Washington Compost. USA Today it's
a has-been.
No. It's USSR yesterday. That's what it is.
Oh, man. Yeah, you might as well have Pravda. David Lister, in New York, you also had the National Guard being visibly, I mean, you see the videos, the National Guard in New York and Brooklyn. Are they there for some kind of what they believe something could happen with the migrant crisis and the violence there? Or are they there because, well, maybe Trump was supposed to be on the September 18th, they were going to sentence him, but I guess that's been pushed out after the election. So what do you think they're there for in Brooklyn?
Well, a couple things. One, the untold story that no one's talking about is the vast amount of New York police officers that have retired, taken early pensions, and so they don't have enough police force to handle the city.
Yeah.
But as a Tennessean, I hear we've hired quite a few of them, and I'm glad to have them here, as is Florida and some other states. So they can collect their pension from New York, and we'll pay them too to do a good job. So that's one big untold story. But also we're seeing that migrant gangs are there, the unenforceable stabbings and killings and violence everywhere, and there's no one to stop it. They've created completely chaotic city. You don't see people out on the streets 24 hours a day anymore. It's terrible what's happened to New York, Chicago, Aurora, all these places, Denver.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Trump was right when he said South America is emptying their prisons and sending them to us.
They admitted that too. They admitted that that's what's happening. Fidel did the same thing way back in the late 70s, early 80s, but they're doing it now. They're doing it.
When somebody should have been in his vestie or a Pravda journalist like Van Jones is trying to argue that these illegal immigrants are prone to not commit crime, up against the statistical reality that 3/4 of violent crime arrests in New York City of late have been illegal immigrants. Who do you believe? The arrest statistics, the crime statistics, or do you believe this propagandist, Van Jones? Is that man anything more than a professional liar and a racist?
Don't trust your eyes. Just trust me, what I tell you, says Ninja.
But beyond that, we all know that if you've seen some of the videos, they're not reporting some of these crimes. So even though they've got this number of 3/4 of it, a lot of it is missing. It would probably be 95%.
Yeah, Tren de Aragua. We're going to get to that story because they literally, you can't even call the police on them because it's a sanctuary city. I did want to go back to the New York Times, Jacob, the another article that is just bizarre. And this is a long list of articles regarding the Constitution. The latest one says, the Constitution is sacred. Is it also dangerous? What? It says it is the biggest threat to American politics is the country's founding document. Oh man, now I've heard it all. I mean, if they're not even hiding it anymore. They want to destroy the Constitution. If your enemy says so, believe them. That's my motto there. So go ahead, Jacob.
What can you, again, I've already said it's the New York Slimes. The New York Times no longer exists. Anybody who does not cancel their subscription to the New York Times doesn't have a brain. How can you believe that that is journalism or even objective editorialism? It is none of the above. It is simply politically motivated left-wing propaganda. It is the voice of a corrupt establishment. What is on back of this? I have been warning for several years. I first said this about 6 years ago, nearly 6 years ago, call it 6 years, that what we're seeing is not a trend towards socialism. The apparent trends towards socialism are merely a device to retrend the economy and the government towards a neo-feudalism. I said that independent of anybody, it was just my own analysis. What I concluded listening to people like El Harari, the Israeli advisor to Schwab. I found that there was an American woman who said the same thing, used the same term. Her name, I think, is Whitney Webb. Whitney Webb, she was interviewed by Glenn Beck. She said the same thing. This is a return to feudalism. What is the New York Times and the Washington Compost? The New York Slimes and the Washington Compost, they are simply agencies of propaganda for the trend towards de-democratization and neo-feudalism.
It's shocking. It's predictable because authoritarians hate the Constitution. But Jake, let me ask you this. Can they gaslight people enough to go along with this?
They've already proven they can. There's enough stupid people. There's enough left-wing students. There is enough feminist women. There is enough minorities who have suffered from racism but have become racist themselves and can easily be manipulated on that basis. Now, again, some women are coming out of feminism. Some blacks are coming out of this, yes, boss, as a common mentality from the party of Jim Crow, slavery, and the Klan. Some Hispanics, a lot of Hispanics are coming out of it, and Jews are being forced out of it, at least the ones who still know how to think.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a change, but the change is not big enough and it's not fast enough. We can only hope and pray that it increases, that more black people see through this, as Hispanics are seeing through it, that more Jews see through it, and that more students wake up. Remember, this is not the left of the 1960s. The baby boomer left was a very different left. It was left. It was not neo-fascist. We had reasons to protest the things we were protesting. You had an unconstitutional war in Vietnam. You had Jim Crow in the American South. There were reasons why the youth of the 1960s went to the left. There was a reason. Now they're going to the left, pretending that those kinds of reasons still exist, but they don't. The old left was against the establishment. It was against the power elite. It was against the super rich. Now it is funded by the super rich. It's funded by Silicon Valley. It's funded by Wall Street. It's funded by Soros. The super rich are controlling the left for their purposes to reintroduce the neo-fascism. Unlike the 1960s, these people don't know what they are really protesting. They only think they know because they're too stupid to think rationally. That's what the educational system has done. That is what the media has done. It has made a generation stupid, and it has made 2 generations of women stupid. Not all of them, but all who have subscribed to the feminist agenda are stupid women.
What is going to look like, Jacob, if they do get enough people to be gaslit to do this?
Well, they
What's well? Let me play the end game here. What's the amendment that they'll go after first?
obviously the First Amendment, they're against free speech. They've already been against the Second Amendment, the right to defend yourself. They want to play. You've got pro-crime prosecutors like Bragg in New York, like Kim Foxx in Chicago, like Kamala Harris was in California. You have pro-crime prosecutors who only want criminals to have guns. They do not want honest citizens to have guns. Just look at what's happened day before yesterday in Atlanta. I wish we had schools as they exist in Israel, where teachers are armed to protect those kids. The teachers are in the Miloim, the military reserve, and they are armed to protect those children with Uzi submachine guns locked in the top desk. I wish we had armed guards and teachers who knew how to use weapons in the schools. That wouldn't have happened in Chicago. That crazy kid would have been shot dead. The Columbine would not have happened. Sandy Hook would not have happened. And notice most of these things happen where you have left-wing local or state governments, where you have Democrat mayors, Democrat governors, Democrat state legislatures. It is always in the states that are the most anti-Second Amendment that have the words gun crime. Most of it is in those states where the Second Amendment is restricted. So they don't want people to be able to defend themselves. Remembering that the attack on the Second Amendment and gun control was invented by the Democratic Party in the American South to prevent American blacks from defending themselves from the cross-burning Ku Klux Klan. They didn't want black Americans to defend themselves from the Klan, so they pushed gun control. That was the Democrats. That's what they're doing now. They don't want people to be able to defend themselves. They want pro-crime prosecutors. They want to have police that have been politicized, that are political police forces, not legitimate law enforcement agencies anymore. And they want chaos. They want to bring about a chaos so people will go to a dictatorship. And that dictatorship will be feudal. It'll be feudalism. You will have serfs, you will have vassals, and you will have the nobility. That is what they want. And this is their process to get it. Suppress free speech, suppress the right to bear arms and to defend yourself and your family, your business, and so forth. Politicize the agencies of police and law enforcement, pro-crime prosecution, and district attorneys, and a school system that is there to indoctrinate, not to educate. And of course, a media that is not news, but propaganda. That is what they want. That is what they are doing. That is their agenda. And if you have people who are university educated who can't see it. Who can't see it. Why? Because they're educated in a school system and a university system that's not there to teach people how to think, but what to think. It's all indoctrination. It is hopeless, hopeless, unless by the mercy of God, there is some kind of divine intervention. It is hopeless.
Yeah, if you want to see what it's really going to look like, look at Brazil. I want to talk about Brazil really quick because it's what the U.S. could possibly look like, depending on what happens pretty soon, in less than 100 days. Is millions of people around in Brazil. It's the second largest population in America. It was one of the most, obviously one of the most beautiful places in the world, and it had has a lot of evangelical Christians who have turned from Catholicism to Christ, and it was free. rather free for quite a long time. They've had problems with dictatorships and things like that, but rather free at least the last 4 years before the 2020 election that happened here. You had a pretty good president, Bolsonaro, who allowed free speech, who was very friendly to Christians. But ever since our four-letter agency got involved, Bolsonaro was kicked out. A new president came in, a Marxist, Lula da Silva. Now they turn the government against the people for free speech, for faith. And it's been happening incrementally. Jacob, you were here when we were talking about how they were imprisoning evangelical Christians for just speaking out. This is early on in his presidency. Now you can't go on X, Twitter. If you do, using a VPN, it costs you $8,000 per day to just be on X. So they outlawed X, they outlawed Rumble. The Supreme Court will go after you. Growing number of evangelical Christians are being put in prison. So, Jacob, is that something that's maybe...
He came to power. He came to power with the backing of the CIA.
Yeah.
What the CIA is doing in Brazil, the FBI is doing in the United States.
Yeah, that's right. David Lister, no Rumble, no X, Christians going to prison. Is this a foreshadow of what could happen to a country very quickly? I mean, we're talking 4 years. You go from a free society, a republic with free speech, to being in prison now.
Yeah. Yes. I want to start back at the beginning. New York Times headline should have said, "The Constitution is the greatest threat to our liberal policies and our Marxist views," because our Constitution has protected our rights and has always done this. And now all of this is being tossed out the window. You see people in the UK being arrested for speech, for disagreeing with what the government considers misinformation or true information, or even if you say something that migrants are doing this thing or that thing, you'll be arrested because you're against them. It's hate speech. And so from Europe, all now coming around to South America, and the next target, of course, well, Canada's already fallen. Trudeau made sure that fell, but we're not far behind it. So I know that the left hates Trump and they see him as a direct threat to their policies. If he's elected, they really truly believe that there's jail coming and traitors being put on trial, and his views will put us, at least slow him down. I don't know that he can reverse it, unless he repents of a lot of the stuff that we talked about a little while ago.
Yeah, and we got more coming up on that because that's pretty inflammatory, what he's been saying. And Jacob's absolutely right. Jacob, I want to ask you this. First Amendment, we normally see it as a free speech thing. But when I read the First Amendment, it says Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. It is about the freedom to worship God and preach the gospel, isn't it?
Of course it is. They only want liberation theology and left-wing preachers. They do not want people who uphold biblical standards of morality concerning the same-sex agenda, concerning pro-life. They want to criminalize biblically based Christian theology. They want to criminalize it. Much the same as Chavez did in Venezuela. Hugo Chavez did in Venezuela. Now, Hugo Chavez is most likely in hell forever with Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. But when he was here, he made war against the evangelicals. That's what they have done in China. That is what Putin did when he came to power in Russia after a brief period of freedom when the Iron Curtain collapsed. And that is what they would like to do in the United States. And they are already doing it. And let's not forget, even among some so-called professing evangelicals, they have political allies.
Yeah.
And people like Tim Keller did tremendous damage to the cause of Christ in the United States. Now, again, he is dead. He is gone. He's giving account for what he did and what he was. Okay, God will deal with people like that. But let's understand, their target is evangelicism. if they cannot corrupt it and seduce it from the inside. You've got people in evangelicism compromising on same-sex marriage. It began with Tony Campola, a disgusting man, a disgusting, reprehensible human being. It began with Campola, but he was not the only one. They're caving in on this. Now, if you are willing to cave in on the same sex and on the abortion and then overlook this and not talk about that, we'll let you get by. It's like Churchill said, an appeaser is somebody who feeds crocodiles, hoping that the crocodile will eat him last.
That's right. That's right. I wanted to ask you something, Jacob. You mentioned Venezuela. I thought it was fascinating. So Maduro is still hanging on to power, even though the most governments have said he lost, but there's corruption on the election. Surprise, surprise. He changes. He says he's so thankful that he's allowed to be president by the people, he says, and even though they hate him, that he's moving Christmas to October 1st. He's changing the calendar. Now Napoleon did this. He changed the calendar. He's changing the calendar because he wants to celebrate Christmas on October 1st. It's laughable, but at the same time, you see traces like Antichrist spirit who wants to change.
That's exactly right, for the book of Daniel.
Go ahead and comment on that, Jacob.
Mohammed with the Gregorian calendar. Okay, it begins with the Quadridecimian Schism, where they made Easter on the day of the resurrection instead of when the New Testament said it is, which is Yom Rishon of Hag Matzot, the first day of the week of the Feast of Unleavened Bread at Passover time. That was the beginning of it. They changed the calendar. Okay, that was the beginning of it. And Julian to the Gregorian calendar and so on. Mohammed changes the calendar. Okay, they changed the calendar. The world revolves around the historical events that they want to be there. Now, I understand we do not know the year or the day of Jesus' birth, but the fact that they can just arbitrarily move it, and that's supposed to be it. It is what Daniel said. The Antichrist will think to change the times and the laws.
That's right.
This indicates, it reflects the fact that there is an Antichrist spirit on back of all of these things. On back of Islam, on back of Roman Catholicism, on back of Eastern Orthodoxy, on back of communism, on back of neo-feudalism. There's an Antichrist spirit on back of these things. Get rid of the Constitution and change the calendar. They changed the law and the times. You're exactly right. It's what Daniel spoke of.
And he's arrested Christians left and right, just like his protege, like his predecessor, I should say. He's the protege of Chavez. But it's also happening in Nicaragua. I'm getting some reports. My family's from there. I was born there. Of evangelicals being arrested. The organization, Christian organization, is being hit hard by Ortega and his wife, who's a witch, who's the vice president. They're going after them big time. So it is unleashed a level of persecution around the world lately. And we'll talk about some of those at the end because it's happening in Ireland in a big way. But I thought it was interesting, Jacob, that Maduro was trying to change the laws, the laws and calendars. What's going on in the UK? Because it's another place where free speech, which is, I'm not saying it's First Amendment, but you can't say anything anymore. Now they want to send prisoners to Estonia. If you're there's 88,000 prisoners in England and in Wales, record high. They want to send them to Estonia. It's not enough to imprison those who have been committing crimes for a while. But now if you post a meme, now if you say something on X, online, on Twitter, you're going to be part of that. 88,000 to go into Estonia. Is there any end to this, Jacob?
The very things you cited in Nicaragua with Ortega, that kind of a crackdown and being aimed on Christians. Now remember, the card that will be played in Latin America is Bonino and Sobrino. It'll be Roman Catholic version of liberation theology. They will say this evangelicism is a threat to our Roman Catholic heritage as a nation. That's what they'll say. And the Roman Catholic Church will go along with it because it is in their interest. Okay? There's always this interplay of religion and politics in Latin America. Well, that's not limited to Latin America. We're talking now about Great Britain. The Church of England is finished. It's a dead institution. There's nothing to do. The only thing that anybody should do with the Church of England is get a shovel and bury it. It is dead. it is committed suicide. Morally, theologically, it is committed suicide. There's no salt and light. There's nothing like this. What has happened in Australia, what happened with Ardern in New Zealand, what really happened with Trudeau in Canada has now come to Britain. Remember, they went for the peripheral English-speaking nations first. Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But the big targets are ultimately the UK and USA. Now they've got the UK. America is next. Obama is a globalist. He was given a choice between Davos and Whitehall. He chose Davos.
Yes, he
The
did.
man is the defender of Islamofascism and a persecutor of British patriots. That is what he is. Understand what's happening here. You see it in the United States, but it's gone further in Great Britain. It's gone further in Ireland. It's gone further in Germany. The governments, the academic institutions, and the mainstream media will call all populists who oppose things like Islamofascism and are objecting to the rapes of European women by Muslim immigrants and things like this. They're calling them all right-wing extremists. They're calling them all hate groups. They'll take examples of a few extremists who may be skinheads or rednecks who actually may be racist, but they try to stereotype all patriots as being that. In Germany, after the elections in Germany last week, they are calling the German nationalists who are simply trying to defend the country from Islamofascism. They're comparing them to Nazis and saying it's a return to Hitler. This is what you're getting from the professors at the universities. This is what you're getting from the politicians of Schrader. This is what you're getting from the mainstream media in Germany. This is what you're getting. And Britain is the same. The people who are standing up, they're calling them extreme right, hate groups. Ireland, the same thing. Irish people have had enough of Irish girls being raped and Irish children being attacked by Muslim gangs. They're being called hate groups, extremists. They criminalize opinion. They criminalize people who subscribe to traditional values. But we have to be wise and understand that their real targets are not Nigel Farage or people who support Donald Trump or conservatives. Their real targets are ultimately going to be Christians and Jews.
That's right. And it's happening. And Estonia actually said that they would gladly take them off their hand. This is Lisa Pakosta, who is the Minister of Justice, says that, well, if the overcrowding in the UK is happening, we will gladly take some prisoners from our NATO allies, which is obviously their ally through NATO, which is interesting because now they're releasing prisoners in the UK for high crime. And they're keeping the ones with low crime, which we will be basically posting on Twitter, X, or tweet together. David Lister, is this the future here? Because they're calling for the arrest of Elon Musk. They're calling for the arrest of other YouTubers and influencers. And I don't know that's going to get around here too well. But if you leave it to Keith Ellison from Minnesota, the Attorney General, he openly celebrates censorship as well as Tim Walz. So
Kamala,
we got some work to do in our prayer life.
Yep, Kamala too. But over here, Jacob didn't mention, but we have guys like Lance Walnew, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Christian nationalist. He's under attack, because of he's a Trump supporter since 2016. They're making people who believe, that a Christian should be able to not only be a Christian, but should also be involved in politics. And so they're after him to destroy him. So they are after us. And you have to even ask the question now with the way NATO is going, is it even relevant anymore as far as America is concerned?
Right.
They're against us in many things. They're lining up troops for war. They're all full force in on Ukraine and defending their borders, and they're going to pull us into a war if we're not careful. So, absolutely, the government, it's doublespeak, thought control, everything. The Minority Report.
Yeah, in UK, obviously, you've seen this latest case, so you can't really say anything against the crimes. I was looking at today, just pull up just random 3 articles. Man who drove 100 feet, with schoolgirl who's 12, trapped underneath his van, walks free, claiming he thought he hit a road cone. Now, you could imagine who that person was. Let's just say he wasn't a British nationalist. Islamic teacher molested a girl. He taught her the Quran, escaped jail after claiming his family were dependent on him because his wife doesn't speak English. Muslim abuser who didn't know that sex with a girl 13 was illegal. He's spared prison. So if you criticize that, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Now, Now, I'm going to bring it into the States because now we have crime in America. Tren de Aragua, which is a Venezuelan gang. It's controlling apartment complexes. Even though Colorado says sanctuary city, you can't say anything. Vance Jones, they don't really do anything. You've seen videos of people saying, are you going to arrest these criminals? I mean, these people are doing crime. Doesn't matter what race they are. They said, no, sanctuary city, we can't do anything. Would you be able to talk about this, David Lister, a year from now?
Well, if Harris gets in, no. But it's crazy, like sanctuary cities, this is for somebody that's an illegal alien to come and to work as like Van Jones said, these people are coming to work and they just want to have a better life. Well, nobody would have, we have a problem with you coming in the back door, but if you're working and obeying the job, fine, working a job and obeying the law, fine. But when you start doing double murders and you're released, the cops have lost their minds. You have to call ICE. Well, it's a sanctuary city, but it's not a sanctuary city to murder people, to take over apartment complex. What type of thinking is this that even the police are going along with it?
Honest cops are retiring as soon as they can.
That's right.
The only thing going to be left is scum.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 arrested in Midtown as migrant crime wave hits again and again. This is a New York Post. And so they can't report it. They can't even arrest the person because committed the crime. In Colorado, because they were running that racket on the apartment complexes, it is actually the people who protested that are being seen as the evil ones, the problem in society. Yeah. So this is going to be a very difficult situation to deal with, especially if he can't even address it.
Exactly what David Wilkerson prophesied. The police will do nothing about serious crime.
Man.
Marco, these people that are wanting it, this will soon be visited upon their head. They don't, because when you are a useful idiot in a Marxist communist system, they will come after you too.
Yeah, they don't. The crime doesn't have a. They can't tell the difference between you're a good Democrat or
liberal or
you're a good liberal. Yeah, we just hit the hour mark, and I just wanted to welcome everyone who's been watching Catching Up with Jacob, episode 198. Got good stuff coming, or we talked about good stuff. We got good stuff coming up, and we have some answers, question and answer on Backstage after this episode's over. So I wanted to bring it around to Israel and the nations, with what's going on there, Jacob. The U.S., the UK, and Norway are blaming Israel for something so bizarre. 6 hostages were killed. This is day 300, and I believe I had it here, 335 days since October 7th. No hostages have been returned. Many of them have been killed. 6 more were found, 1 an American, and they're blaming Israel for the fact that this happened. They're blaming Bibi. This is the Biden and Harris administration. This is the UK and Norway blaming. Ireland is against Israel. So it just seems that even when you have dead Israelis, the blame is on them.
Yes. Let's begin with the United States. 6 killed, 1 of them an American. Biden was asked, is Netanyahu doing enough? No. He blames Israel and Netanyahu after 6 people, 1 of them American, is killed.
Shame.
Even though his own diplomats and his own deputy CIA director said that it was Hamas obstructing the negotiations. Biden blames Israel after American is one of the 6 murdered. Norway blames Israel, puts an embargo on Israel. The Starmer government, David Lammy, a Black African British foreign minister, anti-Israel, begins to retract weapons technology export licenses to Israel for components needed for aircraft, saying that we have to be careful of violations of international humanitarian law. 6 Israelis were shot, and the humanitarian law he's worried about is Israel protecting itself. I pray the judgment of God falls on Starmer and Lammy, and it will. I pray the judgment of God falls on Biden and Harris, and it will. And the judgment of God will fall on Norway. Not least of all is the Republic of Ireland. My mother's family is Irish. I spend a lot of time in Ireland, family in Ireland. Irish politics are a disgrace not only to Ireland, but to the human race. You've got Sinn Féin, the party of the IRA that is not the IRA of Michael Collins. It is a different IRA. Sinn Féin is pro-Islamic terror, in effect. That's what it is, pro-Palestinian. 2 standards. Forget about the fact that the Irish are the indigenous people of Ireland, just as the Jews are the indigenous people of Israel. No, we're going to take the side of the Islamic occupier of the land. It directly contradicts their own history. The Islamic occupation of the indigenous people is the equivalent of the British occupation of the Irish people, and then irrationally. But this is how corrupt Sinn Féin is. Again, it is not the IRA or the Sinn Féin of the Eastern Uprising or that era. It's something very different now. Then you have Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. As far as Fianna Fáil, Eamon de Valera, born in New York, the first Taoiseach, the first Prime Minister of Ireland. When Adolf Hitler committed suicide, he went to the German embassy in Dublin and signed the Book of Remembrance for Adolf Hitler, paid his respects to the German people on the death of Adolf Hitler. That was Eamon de Valera, born in Lexington Avenue in Manhattan, lived 5 blocks from Grand Central Station, 4 blocks from Grand Central Station as a kid. That was de Valera. And then you have the Fine Gael. Absolutely absurd. They are arresting Irish people for opposing indoctrination of children with same-sex agendas. They were arresting Irish people for opposing Islamic immigration and Islamofascism to protect these radical Muslims in Ireland. Well, what else is happening then? Let's look. Ireland was boasting that it was the fastest growing economy in the EU. Now, that was, of course, a false growth. It is simply American high-tech companies, for tax reasons, using Ireland as an investment platform post-Brexit. That is what is driving it up. The average Irish person does not benefit financially or economically from it. The tax revenues are low. That's why the companies are there. And the housing in Dublin has become unaffordable for most people, literally unaffordable. But they were looking at the overall bottom line figures, even though the figures don't reflect the real Irish economy. Well, that has all changed in the course of a couple of weeks. Now the Irish economy has gone into a nosedive in growth. I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. God's judgment will come on Britain, it'll come on Norway, it'll come on Ireland, and if we don't get rid of Harris and Biden, it's going to come on the United States. Not that I'm endorsing Mr. Trump. I'm just praying that Harris does not get elected. It'll bring God's judgment. If this is what they're doing to Israel now before the election, what will they do after the election? May the Almighty raise his hand against Starmer, against the Taoiseach and the President of Ireland, Higgins, and may the Almighty raise his hand against Harris and the Biden administration. Because if his hand is not raised against them, his hand is going to come against Britain and against America. Guaranteed. Genesis 12, verse 3.
The fact that Harris and Biden told Israel, do not go into Rafah. Do not go into Rafah. Now, Israel was going in there to get the Hamas and get the hostages out of there. She blocked them. She blocked them from going there. Guess where they were found? These 6 prisoners, hostages, were found in a tunnel in Rafah. So, yes, Kamala Harris, you're directly responsible for the death of all 6 of them, the American as well as the 5 Israelis. But Jacob, it doesn't stop there, because there are people within Israel that are going after Bibi. Benny Gantz, especially one of them, calling for people to rise up, protest as an agitator. That's all he is now, as an agitator today. And he calls for the cabinet to change, and newspapers are calling for the unions to strike to really bring down the economy, because
The Histadrut was calling for strikes. The country has become divided politically, that is true, over the hostages. People want the hostages back, and that much is understandable. If these people were opposing Benjamin Netanyahu because October 7th happened on his watch, they would have a very legitimate political complaint. But that is not why they're protesting it. That is not why they are protesting it. What happened on October 7th? Within a week, Harris and Biden were decrying the rise of Islamophobia. This was just like that hypocrite George Bush, within days after September 11th, decrying Islamophobia in America, after they did this to our country. This is the kind of corruption and hypocrisy we are dealing with of both parties in America and in other countries. It is unbelievable. They want the Rafah tunnels open because that is how Sinwar can escape. It is the only ticket he has out of there. Most likely is through those tunnels smuggled out of Egypt to Iran. That is his only ticket out of there. Give it to him so he can carry out his threats. Let us remember, I've said this and I'm saying it once more. Iran is the #1 sponsor of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. They've killed Americans. They've killed British. They've killed Europeans. They've killed moderate Muslims. They've killed Jews. They've killed everybody. They want to kill all the Zoroastrians. They want to kill all the Baha'is. They want to kill all the Christians. And they want to kill all the Jews. And they even want to kill other Muslims, particularly Sunnis, who don't agree with them.
And the Kurds, don't leave them out.
Well, that's more the Turks, but yeah, that's Erdogan. But also Iran doesn't like the Kurds either. You're correct. But let's look at this now. The #1 sponsor of all of these terror groups is Iran. The #1 sponsor of Iran is Obama, Biden, and Harris. $300 billion in lifting embargoes, replenishing their economy with oil revenues. $300 billion. Not only that, there was the $6 billion paid as ransom for hostages abducted. Biden, Obama, Harris, Susan Rice, Jake Sullivan. These are the sponsors of Iran. And Iran are the sponsors of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. This is the reality. But there are enough stupid people who will plug their ears and close their eyes and vote on the basis of their emotional stupidity and idiocy instead of on the basis of fact.
David Lister, the true sense of Hamas being the obstacle for peace, not Israel, not Netanyahu, not the government of Israel, but it's Hamas. They have used foreign aid to build more tunnels and enrich their leaders rather than, going to the people that need it. And Hamas is fundamentally impossible to deal with. I'm going to quote this, the Khartoum Resolution, 1967, by the Arab League. No peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, no negotiations with Israel. To this day, Islam follows that these Muslim countries follows that. Hamas is in their charter that they will not recognize Israel and they want them wiped out. How can you ever fundamentally make any peace with people like this?
You can't make peace with them because they, at this point, they don't want any peace. Because if they were to agree to a ceasefire, to a stoppage, they have no cause to fight for. And they know right now is their time, and they're continuing up the assault. They don't care if they all die. They're going to have others. And we're seeing videos around the world of open calls in even Western nations to rise up, O soldiers of Islam. You are the greatest fighters. We must march on Jerusalem and take it back. So it's everywhere, that they're just coming to change the West. I think of Jeremiah and how he said that the fighting was so bad that we're going to be wore out. It doesn't look like it's going to stop. Maybe we can get a respite under Trump, but if somebody liberal replaces him, it's only going to get worse.
They believe they have a divine mandate.
Yeah.
This is the insanity of it. It's just a divine mandate to persecute, to wipe out the Jews, and of course, ultimately, Ubers.
They say there's got to be more October 7th, and it is the policy of Harris and Biden to make sure it happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
We forgot about the Houthis killing all the Yazidis and the constant rape of women and children and everything else, and killing them, hundreds of them. If you were an old woman, they just buried you alive. I think they buried like 80 in one grave. That's Islam.
Yeah.
Are you sure that when they say march on Jerusalem, you sure that Jerusalem's just not a code word for like Europe?
Well, they call it Al-Quds. You have to understand what's happening theologically from Daniel 10. They're being demonically driven to prevent the return of Christ to Jerusalem. Satan must try to obliterate the Jewish presence in Jerusalem because of the prophecies of Jesus in Matthew 23, Luke 21, and Zechariah 12. They must prevent his return. Satan must prevent his return, and he's using radical Islam to attempt to do it. That is what's driving them. They call themselves the Al-Aqsa Brigade. That is what is driving them. Absolutely, for sure. But let's look at something. 700,000 Arab Muslims killed, according to Al Jazeera in Syria. 400,000 Arab Muslims killed in Yemen. Yet Israel is the big problem. What they do to each other is irrelevant. The unbelievable dual standards and hypocrisy are unfathomable. It's all lies and hypocrisy. All. 3 leaders of Hamas pilfered, stole, embezzled $11 billion of international aid. They live in Qatar in 5-star hotels, having stole $11 billion, and what they didn't steal, they used to dig tunnels for military purposes. Didn't go to help the people. That's Israel's fault in the thinking of the mainstream media and the thinking of the left. You can't make this up. And you can't explain how people can be stupid enough to believe it unless they are spiritually deluded, which they are. The God of this world has blinded their eyes.
Absolutely, sure. Jacob, I want to finish with the episode with, of course, what you guys have been talking about and what's leading up to this is the obvious answer is, are Christians going to be persecuted? And we have the case here, just several cases. We talked about some of them in Venezuela, Nicaragua, but here's in Ireland. Irish teacher Enoch Burke, we made a video about him, pray for Enoch Burke, arrested at Wilson's Hospital School after refusing to endorse and affirm transgender ideology. He says, I have the right to be here. I have the right to work here. Do you know what they're doing to their kids there? They're castrating them. This is an ideology that's going to lead to suicide. he basically laid it out for the Garda, but the Garda was only interested in one thing. I'm here to do my job. And he was taken into jail, was taken and put in a cart and taken to jail. He lost his job earlier. We talked about him around March, where he refused to do the same thing at a school. He lost his job because of it. The courts agreed with the school district for firing him, even though there's no real law that says that you can be fired for this, but he was fired. And the Guardian's reading just basically said, we're just following orders. We're just doing our job. Jacob, this goes deeper than that because you have organizations that are working in conjunction with the government to really come after kids. This is Truthla. This is O'Connell. These are some of the lawyers that are going after anybody who stands up against or for children and preventing this from happening. Jacob, your family's from there. You can comment a little bit more on this.
My mother's family is from there, yes. First of all, you have to understand Irish Catholicism. A report was issued this week that there are well over 2,000 cases in schools from the 1960s to the 1990s of systematic homosexual and lesbian child molestation, primarily, most of it homosexual nature, carried out by Roman Catholic nuns and priests in Catholic schools. Now, in Ireland, it's not as Catholic as it was, not nearly. Now it is secular teachers doing it. You can wear a habit or a Roman collar, clerical collar, or you cannot, but they're doing the same thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is Ireland. We're just doing our job, says the Garda, which is the Irish police, means the guards in Irish. Yet that is what the Nazi war criminals said at Nuremberg. We're only following orders. They said the same thing. You have the FBI doing the same kind of thing. They take a vow in the military and in the Justice Department to uphold the Constitution. They violate the Constitution that they've sworn to uphold. This is the worthless, stinking FBI. This is the Mounties of Canada. This is the British police, and it's the Irish Garda. They're all going the same way. They're Gestapos. They're political police departments. They're no longer legitimate law enforcement. Honest cops are quitting, are retiring, and they cannot get honest people to take those jobs because you have to be dishonest to join such police forces. That is the way it is going. It is becoming Nazi. It has a Nazi mentality. And this is very true in Ireland, which had a pro-Nazi government in effect.
I'm just wondering whether I should say this or comment. But yeah, look, I would agree with Jacob, and I've just got to be very careful what I do say. But when it comes to the police, you're right, Jacob. They're being taken over and hijacked by the LGBTQ plus agenda. They're being the ones who are getting the positions. You'll find that most of the people in positions of power in the police force here are all female and lesbian and of that persuasion. So, yeah, I would agree with you, Jacob.
Yes. Jacob, Leo Varadkar, he stopped being the prime minister or the, what do you call it, the Taoiseach. He's no longer, but to Simon Harris. Now, he is, perhaps a bit different than Varadkar, but nonetheless, same policies.
Same policies. Varadkar was a homosexual and a Hindu. Okay?
Yeah.
A homosexual and a Hindu. That was Varadkar. You changed the window dressing, but you got the same merchandise for sale in the shop. That's it. And Higgins, the president of Ireland, is an abysmal figure.
Oh,
he's an abysmal, appalling figure.
It's a terrible thing when you have Tesla's Child and Family Agency to protect.
Yes.
And they actually are endorsing it and putting big time lawyers.
Yes, but it's like social services in England.
Yep.
Their ranks of their employees and staff were swelled with LGBTQ people.
Man. Jacob, I don't know what the population in terms of percentage are Christians in Ireland in terms of born again.
Born again Christians. In Northern Ireland, it's a higher percentage.
Right.
Perhaps 20%. In the Republic of Ireland, the Protestant population is probably less than 5%, and not all of those are born again.
what is the prospect for believers in Northern Ireland, Ireland and Northern Ireland? I mean, you're facing some really
Okay, Ireland, because of the clerical scandals and the child abuse and the pedophilia that was widespread and suppressed, when they found, like, just in back of one convent in Tuam in Ireland, the skeletons of about 800 babies, buried by the nuns and stuff. And the Garda reckons there's probably 10,000 on back of convents in Ireland. People know this. Every bishop in Ireland has been caught protecting sex criminal clergy at the expense of not protecting the children. The churches are empty, except for a handful of ridiculous old people who live in the past. The churches in Ireland are now empty. Unfortunately, Ireland as a whole is not turning to Christ. And probably most of the evangelical churches that are there have bought into the nonsense and the hype from the States. They don't have good doctrine. They don't have good doctrine at all. This is the problem. The other problem is evangelicism is just seen as Protestantism, and that is associated with British colonialism and the history of the Easter Uprising, the black and tans and the potato famine and things of this nature. So it's a prisoner of history as well. So the vacuum is being filled by secular godlessness, by just secular godlessness. A certain amount of growth of cults, certainly of New Age, but evangelicism is not replacing either Protestantism or Catholicism on a big scale. And most of the evangelical churches in Ireland are a joke, a handful of exceptions.
Yeah, Conor McGregor wants to run for president there. I don't know if he's going to get a lot of votes on the UFC fighter, but he wants to be president of Ireland. There's a lot of people.
What they have now.
They said a lot of people will vote for him. So that's an interesting thing. But obviously, we're dealing with persecution. And then, of course, France. This is more, I'm just going to broaden the subject here, not just dealing with Protestant or born-again Christians, but in terms of churches. People were complaining that France has terrible air pollution, and they were wondering what could have caused it. Now, there's been about 40 churches burnt within the last, let's say, 10 months. Almost a church every couple of weeks burns in France. Yeah. This week was, what's the name of that church? It's the Immaculate something. Immaculate Conception. Yeah, that's right. And then Notre Dame Cathedral, all that. It's just on and on and on. And the authorities are concerned because they can't figure out who's doing it. Jacob, I don't think the nuns are doing it. I don't think they're burning their churches.
I think radical Muslims are doing it. And the gendarmerie, the police know it, but they can't say it.
Marie Le Pen says, look, the problem is immigration. Mass immigration is a disaster. But is anybody going to listen to her when you got Macron and the other guys making deals?
Listen, if people vote for the French left or the British left or the Democrats in America, and they are victimized, they have no right to complain about anything. Yeah. It's like that stupid woman in Oakland who owned the shop, who was left-wing and who was pro-crime and all this kind of stuff, and not prosecuting felons, and she got murdered in her own shop. Am I glad she's dead? No. Am I glad she's gone? Yes. Do I feel sorry for her? Not one bit. She got what she voted for. Well, Europe is like that. France is like that to the power of 10. France is like, it's like the Bay Area of San Francisco. That is what it's like. That is the predominant mentality of the French establishment and those who vote for the mainstream parties in France. It's like one big Bay Area.
I want to bring in hope here. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, when I hear all of us talking and hear where this is going, and Matthew 24, 25 are just ringing in my ear. The first 3.5 years are marked by deception, persecution, and apostasy. Jacob talked about the low theology level in Europe there and other places. I've talked about it in the Far East. Pastors that are even teaching a true gospel have no depth in their theology. And so they go off easily. And then this rising persecution, it's coming against the Christian church. It's coming against true believers. The apostate church will bow a knee. And then you have the deception that is on top of all this. I mean,
What- yeah.
people should wake up that we are getting close.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that point, David, because I want to close out with that specific one. Go ahead, Davey. I just want to bring the point up. Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about too a little bit this week, and the Enoch case kind of brought it home a little bit too to me, which we really do need to pray for him. But I noticed it says that they, when they bring you before courts and magistrates, it says, it doesn't say if they bring you before courts and magistrates. It says when. So I think it's it's something that's inevitable. We're all going to be facing, and probably maybe sooner than later, the way things are going.
I want to bring here to. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
To David's point and David's point. First, they have to get rid of what you see, so they have to control the media. Second, they have to make sure you can't speak against them and mock them for what they're doing. So they got to get rid of free speech. Lastly, they have to take away any chance you have of defending yourself. So the infiltration of the police force and the confiscation of weapons.
And the army, military.
That is the end game. And that is why they have to hit all those check marks to be able to persecute the Christian church.
Yep.
Because otherwise,
I want to bring up the last point. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
No, that's it. It's
Okay.
a sequence of events.
The final point that I want to bring up, it's what's going on with a case in Michigan. 7 anti-abortion protesters back in 2020 were basically arrested for the FACE Act, which is basically you can't block. Basically, it's a conspiracy against the rights and freedoms of people that want an abortion, freedom of access to the clinic entrances. It began with Clinton, but you could see how it started in the late 90s or mid 90s to now. Now it's a felony, a conspiracy to basically work against people that want an abortion. So it's called the FACE Act, FACE. 7 people were arrested for that, and they were tried and they were found guilty, including, and it's obviously 7 of them did the horrible thing, but I want to focus on one person, Eva Adel, who is a Yugoslavian, German descent Yugoslavian, who survived. She's 89 years old. She survived the communist concentration camp under Tito, and what they did, it was a horrific thing. Her family's a great story of redemption and how she came to Christ. And Jacob, I wanted to start with you. She's ready to die, she says. She cannot believe that after surviving Tito concentration camps and the communists, she came to the United States hoping for a better future, and she found it. But she found herself fighting against what she believed was the extermination of people, just like she endured, was to save babies. And she's fought for that for a long time. Now, never in her wildest dreams, she says she thought she would go to court and find herself guilty in America for trying to protect a life. Now, 89 years old, she's prepared to die. She's quoting great verses, in my opinion, in the interview that she saw from John 14, talking about following Jesus and his word. What do you make of this? This is unbelievable, and I don't know where the Republicans stand or Trump stands on this anymore.
I'll take your first point first. People like Obama and Clinton and Harris and Biden should not be seen as morally any different than any other communist dictator. They may have been constitutionally restrained from going as far as they like or would have gone had they been able to do it, and they're trying to do it. But they're no different in terms of character. I have no more respect for Clinton than I do than I do for Tito. None. None. They're the same. Okay, godless people. Okay, that's to begin with. As to your second point, this is something that goes beyond shocking. Can you repeat your second point again? I just want to make sure I understood.
Yeah, I in light of the fact that she's facing these charges and she's been sentenced, even if Trump wins, I don't know where he stands. I don't know
Well,
Republicans
concerning
has
Mr.
it
Trump,
on
let's
abortion.
just look. As most of you know, I was not just disappointed, but somewhat appalled when he held his celebration of homosexuality, quote unquote, gay gala in Mar-a-Lago last year, attended by Harry Lake and these other Republicans. I was frankly appalled. That is the one thing, as I've said, Clinton had right. Don't ask, don't tell. There are people like Dave Rubin and Douglas Murray and other people who are homosexual, who I agree with politically, but they keep their sexual orientation to themselves. I don't agree with it, but I agree with their right to it, and they don't try to push it on other people. That somebody's sexual orientation, it's your business. Keep it to yourself, okay? You don't have to talk about your personal sex life or preferences. Okay, that is the one thing I agreed with Clinton about. Okay, but Mr. Trump didn't. He celebrated it. Last week, he did two other things. You have a pro-life law in Florida, the heartbeat bill, 6 weeks gestation, supported by Governor Santos, who unfortunately lacked the charisma to get elected president, but I would have preferred him to be president instead of Mr. Trump, had he been electable. And there's a Soros-funded repeal, a bill to repeal this, to say, no, you have to abort a baby even though it has a heartbeat at 6 weeks. Donald Trump has come out and he said, no, 6 weeks is too short. The fact that the baby has a beating heart, you should still be able to kill it, not just at 6 weeks when the heartbeat first is audible on a fetal heart monitor, but kill it even at a later date point in its gestation. This was Donald Trump. This is a pro-abortion. This is pro-abortion. He's no longer a pro-life candidate, because I believe if he stayed loyal to the principles of Scripture, God would have given him victory.
Mm.
But when you're surrounding yourself with false teachers and a moral woman who got divorced and stayed in ministry and was walking hand in hand with Benny Hinn on Via Venuto in Rome, Paula White, that's your spiritual evangelical Christian advisor? He was surrounded by bad people claiming to be born-again Christians. And now he is departed from any biblical compass in terms of moral direction, in the area of drugs, in the areas of abortion, and in the area of LGBTQ. The most he is a lesser of evils, and a lesser of evils is an evil no less. I'm just praying that Harris doesn't get elected. That's all I can pray for. I can't really, no, I believe God spared his life. I'd obviously rather have him as a lesser of two evils, but a lesser of two evils is an evil no less. No, I don't believe Mr. Trump is a Christian. He may be like Cyrus the Great was to the Jews, somebody who was benevolent towards the people of God or to the children of God. He may be more benevolent towards them and not as bad as Harris. That's the most we can say. Now, I'm not discouraging other Christians from voting for him, nor praying for him. I pray for him every day. I voted for him twice in the past. But after what has happened this past week, I am I'm beyond disgusted.
Yeah. David, listen, we'll go to you. Thoughts on Ava Adel, and will she ever even get any, even if Trump wins, will she even get any kind of pardon, any kind of forgiveness? She talked about the IVF and that Trump is for IVF, and now they're going to get the insurance to pay for that. That obviously kills babies, because you pick the ones that you want, then you get rid of the ones that you don't want. That's a terrible thing, but that's what they want to do now. And obviously his support for he's anti the heartbeat bill, and is saying it's too short. He wants to expand it. So your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that any political, being that he is now being politically persecuted, I can easily see him pardoning all the J6 guys, because he doesn't have to run again. He can't run again. So somebody could bring her to his attention, and I could see him being very, very helpful to her and to pardon her and get her out of jail, But then all he's going to do, the way it looks to me, and I'm hopeful in Jesus coming, but I'm not so hopeful anymore about what's going on in this world.
Let me ask you this too, David. Are you the fact that obviously she might get a pardon or whatever, if the Republic win, but do you see ever one president or at least Congress or somebody to say this FACE Act is horrific? This federal law, you can't have it. Can we see a repeal coming of that law? Because that's the law that hurts people.
If Trump was to, if Trump God saved him for this time, if he hears the truth and repents, something like that could happen. But, if you don't know the Lord, which I do not believe that Mr. Trump does, I think he is pro-Christian, but I don't think that he knows the Lord, and as such, God may, like he said, allow him to be a Cyrus, but even Cyrus and his sons, I believe, had to run from, was it Alexander the Great, Jacob?
Yep. Alexander the Great.
Yeah, so he will be taunted and chased by the left probably all the days of his lives.
Final question for Jacob, David, and Davey, if you want to chime in on it for sure. We hold to the fact that the Bible teaches the Great Tribulation is the persecution of Antichrist. We know that from Scripture, and the fact we're talking about persecution here. Persecution is coming. I mean, it's something we have to address, and God's allowing certain things in our lives to strengthen us if we were to go through that period of time that the Bible speaks about. I want to just finish with your thoughts on knowing that this is what the Scripture says. It's hard for me to wrap my head around as a pastor that I wouldn't address this issue with believers, congregations, one-on-one. The pastors are not willing to tell people, prepare and be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, because our battle is not against flesh and blood, and be prepared to go through difficult times, as the Scripture says. Jacob, you've been outspoken, regarding the rapture and regarding the pre-tribulation rapture and some of its faults there, and not preparing believers for that. But what do you say about people that won't talk about this issue, won't address it because it's not something we're going to deal with? Persecution is not something that believers are going to go through.
Well, the arch proponents of this usually come in three forms. One, those who are who go to church, sing the hymn, and clap, and are ignorant of the doctrine of Scripture. And they're in churches that don't teach about the last days or eschatology or anything of that nature. And there's a lot of people who, through the fault of their churches and pastors and denominations, are ignorant. That is the first. The second are those who subscribe to the false gospel of the word, faith, money preachers. You don't have to suffer. You're a king's kid, forgetting that his servant is not above his master. Those who follow the word, faith, money preachers, who follow these religious liars and mammon worshipers pretending to be Christian. Those are the second category. The third category are the people who are given to strong pre-tribulational positions. We're going to get out of here. Don't worry about the Antichrist. Don't worry about defending him. We're going to be zapped out of here. No more prophecies have to be fulfilled, etc., etc. Don't worry about being hated by all nations for the namesake of Jesus. We're going to be out of here. That's not going to happen. Those who have bought into the myth, the delusion, that is satanically inspired, by the way, of pre-tribulationism. That is those are the three categories of Christians. Now just look at what's happening. Just take a look at what's happening. You've got Zuckerberg. How disingenuous can somebody be? He gives $400 million to the Democratic Party to elect Biden. $400 million contribution. But then he admits last week that the White House pressured him to censor information that they didn't want up there. A statement by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he gets an email from the White House saying, take this down as ASAP, and he says he did it. And now he is apologizing. Apologizing for what? He did it voluntarily, and he gave money to that administration's campaign. Okay. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, okay, a former congresswoman and a military officer who volunteered after September 11th to defend the country as a woman in the military. After she made statements critical of Harris, she was put on a terrorist watch list. She can't get on an airplane without being profiled and singled out and interrogated. Tulsi Gabbard, a former congresswoman and a member of the military. Okay? That is what they're doing to their political enemies. What will they do to save Christians? Yet people continue to subscribe to this delusion. The word faith, the eschatology is not important, courtesy of Satan's liar, Rick Warren, who said avoid end-time prophecy. It's a diversion. Those who listen to Warren and churches that follow Warren, those who believe in this word, the word faith money preachers, you don't have to suffer. And then the third are these people given to pre-tribulationism, particularly the extreme forms of it, as espoused by Lee Brainerd and by what's his name? Andy Wood.
Andy Woods, yeah.
Yeah. These people are not going to be ready to face what's coming.
David Lister.
Yes. Well, my thought was earlier what Jacob said about when he started speaking on this. So I think I'm good there.
Okay, Davey.
Oh, yeah, one thing, look, I just wanted to share with people. And look, this was one of the first things I learned as a Christian. I guess for several years I was seeking the Lord, but I was seeking the Lord for the wrong reasons. I was basically seeking him to deliver me from my problems. I guess you could say I had a lot of tribulation in my life. And I was seeking the Lord to deliver me from them, but he didn't deliver me from them. He delivered me through them. And I think that's going to be the case here. You know, I think I got taught an early lesson, taught a lesson very early on in life that I think is very important. God delivers us through things. He doesn't always deliver us from things. Sometimes he does, but most times he brings us through them. And I think this is the case. I think people need to be prepared to go through some things. It's not going to be... That was a misconception I had before I come to Christ. I thought, you know, you accept Christ and it was all going to be peachy and rosy and everything was going to be good. You never sinned again. I had total misconceptions about what it was. So, yeah, I'm thankful for the lesson I learned the hard way early on. I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, so basically, as we finish our episode, we have an update. I guess Spectrum, which is where Jay uses to get our live stream on, they actually had gone down because probably severe weather. So we apologize for those who have been watching live in certain platforms. The Spectrum hasn't been back up yet, but we're trying to get the live stream back up. We're recording, but live stream is not up on some cases. I'm not sure. Davey, we can get it back on Rumble. That would be great if you could do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get it set up during the break.
Yeah, Davey, Jay sends his apologies. Obviously, it's not his fault. It has nothing to do with him. It's just basically Spectrum and some of the severe weather here. So
I didn't think it ever rained in Southern California.
No, not that kind of the weather. Not that kind of weather. Severe weather, heat. But maybe it was the Garda, or maybe it was Kamala Harris who's trying to take the string. So we can't put it past him.
Yeah.
She is from Ireland. So maybe Jacob, she heard that. Your family's from Ireland too, so maybe they go after you on that one. Pray to God now. But on a more serious note, as we finish, thank you so much, Jacob and Davey, for the response, and David, thank you so much as well, because it's important for believers to know the Bible speaks very clearly about great tribulation coming, and it speaks very clearly there'll be the persecution of Antichrist, and obviously the Antichrist will persecute both Jews and Christians, and you can see it in Scripture there. What we are basically stating today is that we have to be very honest with Scripture. We have to be very honest with what it says. And even, going back to the early church fathers, to the Scriptures, the early church fathers, and even the circumstances that we have to address the fact that as pastors, teachers, leaders, Christians, average Christians, we need to be not only speaking on this, sharing with us, encouraging people to go through that, because we need that great comfort of the Lord. And comfort, I don't mean just pat people on the back, but comfort meaning encourage them to go on with Jesus despite persecution that we may face. And God's allowing a bit of that in our world, especially the last few years, so that we can gather strength, so we can be stronger for the next one and the next one, like a soldier would.
Training.
Soldiers train. And then for battle. And our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against the enemy, against principalities, demons, rulers, and high places, satanic forces. So God will give us the victory through the resurrection. There's no doubt about that. So keep preaching Jesus. We're going to be going to backstage. So we're going to stop, not stop the recording, but we're going to stop here for catching up. We're going to go on backstage, take some questions, and get the stream back up, because Spectrum has gone down. So not Jay's fault in any way. So please don't anybody blame Jay. He's dealing with the same problems we're all dealing with, is the fact trying to get the stream up, and it's the weather-related issue. So thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you guys in just a few minutes.
Yeah, let us be found faithful and working in the field. Amen.
Yeah.
Also on backstage, we'll be looking at very briefly two things that we could not fit in right now. The Newsom vetoes of two bills in California, which are quite interesting and important. And the other is a film that was intercepted by British counterterrorism police that was kept from both the British and American public concerning September 11th and Saudi Arabian involvement. This is a brand new film. And again, the mainstream media has tried to bury it. It goes back to the September 11th attacks. We'll make mention of those two things on backstage.
We're good.